All right, last video for this unit. We'll finally be done with this one. So we're going to go through and solve rational equations for a specific variable. So before we were solving it to find out what value a variable was. In this case, we're just rewriting and re-expressing the variable or rewriting and re-expressing the equation for a particular variable. So now let's take a look here. Remember the same thing that we did before. We're going to figure out what is the least common denominator, and then we're going to figure out what values the variables cannot be. So my least common denominator in this case, if you look at it, I've got a c here, an m here, and technically there's a 1 in this denominator. So my least common denominator is going to be c times m. And then we know that c cannot equal 0 and m cannot equal 0. All right, so now we're going to go through and multiply every single term by cm. So cm times 1 divided by c plus cm times 1 over m is equal to cm times 1, which we know is just going to be cm. So now we simplify this. The c's go bye-byes. I'm left with m plus c is equal to cm. So I want to solve for c, which means I need to get all the c's on one side. So in that case, we'll subtract c from both sides. Now I get m is equal to cm minus c. Again, I got to get c isolated. So I'm going to factor out c from this side. So I'll divide each term by c, which means I get m minus 1. Now to get c by itself, I got to divide both sides by m minus 1. So we get c is equal to m divided by m minus 1. Now over here we said, hey, you know what? C cannot be 0 because of the initial. M cannot be 0 because of this initial. And then when I rewrite it here and rewrite it for c and solving for c, then I also know that m can also not be equal to a positive 1. So here's the solution, or here's my equation solved for that variable, and then here are the restrictions as a result of the information that I know. So I have to make sure that I put the restrictions in place. I start with what we started with and what would have made the denominators equal 0 and what would not have been allowed. And then when I'm over here, I might find something else that is not allowed. Okay? All right, let's try another example on this. We're only going to do 2 examples for this section. It's not like the last one where we had 4 different examples. So this one we're asked to solve for c again. And my common denominator, as you can see, is c minus 2. So my least common denominator is c minus 2. So I'm going to multiply everybody by that. And then we know right off the bat that c cannot equal 2. So now let's go through and solve this. So I'm going to multiply everybody by c minus 2. And we'll end up with our fraction on this side of b plus 3 divided by c minus 2. And then that will be multiplied by c minus 2. So we're still doing and reinforcing all the work that we've been doing before. So my c minus 2 here and my c minus 2 here go away. That was why I multiplied everybody by c minus 2. And again, I'm trying to solve for c, so I'm going to have a times c minus 2. I'm not going to distribute because that won't help me any, is equal to b plus 3. So I need to get c by itself, which means a has to go away. Since multiplication is holding the a there, we're going to divide by a. So now I get c minus 2 is equal to b plus 3 divided by a. Now I need c by itself, so I got to add 2. So now c is equal to b plus 3 divided by a, and then we're going to add 2 at the very end. So there's my equation, but I also have a restriction based on this. I now know not only can c not equal 2, but a cannot equal 0 either. Okay, and that's just based on what we learned from doing that. All right, so when dealing with simplifying, or not even simplifying, rewriting these equations for a particular variable, you're trying to isolate that one variable you're looking for, and you have to do whatever you can to make sure that's the only variable you have on one side. You're solving for a particular variable. As you go through, you might see that at the end of our process, there's yet another variable that will have a restriction on its domain because of the fact that it appears in the denominator, and you have to take that into account. So you do just like we did in the last section, except that you're not solving for a particular to find a particular value of a variable, but you're solving for that variable. All right, so hopefully this was helpful, and that's the last one that we have for this particular unit on rational equations. So thank you, and have a great rest of your day.